All right, thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, very good. Thanks. How are you? Thanks, Anton. Hi, everyone. So I'm Matt Thomas. I've been working in growth marketing for just over 10 years now. Started off in-house with a tech startup, and have been since then sort of doing different fractional roles as a fractional head of growth for all manner of startups, both here and in the US, and at different stages of growth. So from pre-launch all the way through to post-Series A. And now I'm head of growth at that round, which is a marketplace for fundraising services, helping startups to find, compare, and engage with angel networks and investment syndicates and other fundraising partners.
Hi everyone, I'm Ian Russell. I've worked in the direct marketing space for 20 years now, which makes me feel very old, and more specifically in the mobile app space and growth marketing specifically for mobile apps for the past 15 years, working across financial services, media, health tech, and fintech. And I currently have started as a co-founder at a new startup called Know Your Dosh, which is aiming to secure family finances for everybody around the world. So I've kind of gone through the startup to scale up before, and I'm back at that very start of the startup again. Okay, I suppose that's easier if I'm going first. So sorry to Matt if I steal any of his thunder. But I would say it's almost kind of like yin and yang. I would say don't rush into paid marketing too quickly when you're promoting your business and starting to look at that growth. And very much do make sure you get your house in order across all your customer facing touch points, and just so you've got that cohesive brand perception and there's nothing confusing between various website landing pages or social media profiles or other directories that you might be listed on. So making sure that everything has got a really good platform and base to build from.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it was quite similar to what I was thinking. So glad we're on the same page. I'll sort of go a little bit deeper with that. I'd say sort of, the reason for not sort of jumping straight into paid, I think, and the do is just think very carefully about what retention means for your business, and understand why retention is actually so important to have nailed before you get into sort of the scalable aspects of performance marketing and trying to grow very, very quickly. So yeah, my do is just work out what retention means for you, and don't I guess for the early stage businesses, I think, what I've seen quite a lot recently is this sort of assumption that traction has to be revenue. You have to race towards revenue, and I think that kind of shoehorns people into doing things that don't necessarily are not necessarily sort of the right time for them. But don't think necessarily that traction means revenue. There are other ways to show traction, and it can be individual to each business. So think about that.
Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Right here, I guess a quick reset of the conversation, especially for those of you that have just joined. This is Startup Growth Q&A 150. We've been doing this for just over 4 years now, where some amazing panelists join us on stage to help founders like yourself for free with whatever questions you may have on your fundraising journey, really. So the idea, it's quite simple. If you're a founder, either here on Microsoft Teams or on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. By the way, if you're on the live streams, we can't monitor your questions live. So you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is via our website, startup2scaleup.club. You go to today's session, which is Startup Growth Q&A 150. Click join. A quick registration gets you a link to our call here on Microsoft Teams. You get that link via email, so keep an eye for that. And then when you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic and you can ask our team. Now, in terms of what happens here today, we're taking questions on growing your business to the next stage. Those questions could be on anything from user, vendor, partner, client acquisition, growth hacks, go-to-market, perhaps some kind of partnership question, sales, marketing, advertising, branding, and all that jazz. So there are no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. If, by the way, your question today are, well, your questions are not on growth, save them for the other conversations we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK startup law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can register to any of them via our site. Actually, when you're on our site, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators that you can join. At the top and bottom of our site, there's a link, an icon, a WhatsApp icon. You can click and join us through that. Now, let's get on to some questions. This is quite a long one, but I'll read it out loud anyway. I'll put it in the chat for the panelists if they want to kind of have a look at it. So this is a health tech for remote patient monitoring just outside London. They're planning to go for Series A in September. And then she goes on to say, our remote patient monitoring platform struggles with an inadequate onboarding support, leading to high initial drop-off rates among patients. What strategies can we use to create a robust onboarding experience, including step-by-step video guides tailored to different age groups? I don't know why it sounds familiar, this question. Interactive Q&A sessions with support staff and a dedicated helpline for first-time users. Furthermore, how can we implement feedback loops during onboarding to identify and address common pain points quickly? My lord, another one. Lastly, how can we use data analytics to personalize support experiences, ensuring patients feel confident using the platform and reducing churn rates in the critical early stage? So quite a mouthful. I guess first question is what strategies to use to create a good onboarding experience, because they're losing people. So they think it is because of, or it may be due to onboarding. 2, it's a good feedback loop. And 3, how can they use data to their advantage for this? Maybe we can start with Matt, and then we'll go on to Ian. Matt?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think actually all the things you've mentioned are valuable. I guess the question kind of goes, how, does the product experience differ for age groups? And is there something that, is that the best way to kind of segment the audience? And if that's the case, then I would just say that, those different options you've mentioned there, the videos, break those down by age and make sure that's really clear so users can choose what's right for them. And you can make that as personalized as you want with actors and sort of voiceovers sort of that reflect the demographic. So I'd go with something like that. On the second question, so what was the second question? So I'm just scanning back through. The feedback loops, yeah, super important. I mean, I think at this stage, probably like the source of feedback is going to be the customer. I mean, I've had really good success with the AI-based onboarding tool that we use, which we've fed lots of information ourselves as to the onboarding process and the questions that people ask, and then when users engage with that, we get to see all of that information, like what questions they're asking, how the AI is answering it, if we need to go back to them and improve that. So that's a really useful sort of feedback loop in itself. And then just as much face time with customers as possible, I think is never a bad thing. I don't think you can do too much of that. So I'd go with that. And then lastly, on the sort of the personalization, yes, it's probably a little bit of sort of more product question, so probably not quite up my street, but I would imagine sort of integrating your CRM and what data you're capturing about your patients and customers. And I appreciate that's probably quite sensitive data, so you have to be sort of careful about how you distribute that to other tools, but integrating that with the customer support tooling so that it's accessible, and people if you've got humans answering those questions, they can personalize the experience based on where they've been. It's probably a kind of a tooling setup, product and data tooling sort of question, I think, but I would probably be looking at how to enable that.
Thanks for
Cheers,
that,
Matt.
Matt. We'll go on to Ian, and then after that, Miles, are you able? Sorry, Ian, just before I give you the mic, Miles, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Perfect, brilliant. We'll go on to Ian to answer this question. I don't know, can you read the question in the chat, or you can't read it?
Hang on, I'll have a quick look. I've had an absolute nightmare of my tech this morning. No, it's not there.
I'm sorry. Okay, no, because I posted it before you joined, so I'll repost it just to.
Got it.
Here we go. And then we'll give Ian a go. And whilst Ian is doing that, you may want to read the question and then quickly introduce yourself before that, if you don't mind, Miles.
Got it.
And then fire away with however you think you want to answer it. Take it away, Ian.
Yeah, so I was sort of build on what Matt was saying, where my first thought when I was reading this question was actually it kind of all wraps into one, which is that integrated CRM system. Because if I'm assuming that this initial onboarding journey is digital, having the CRM in place where you can see what information is going out if you're sending out links to video guides, for example, or resources like your help center, or just trying to help people along that journey, being able to see in that central system how effective each of those are and where potentially people are dropping off is then creating that feedback loop. And then equally with a lot of CRMs now, you can feed specific data points in, so you can help with segmenting of that audience, whether it is just just by age group or a specific area like of concern, and you can then really start to tailor that onboarding based on those analytics, like the question is saying, to personalize that support experience. So for me, I think it all is all wrapped up into that sort of integrated CRM system. And a lot of services that are out there now will offer free sort of startup packages and credits to get going, so it isn't necessarily something that is a huge investment.
Thank you very much. Miles, are you okay to talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So apologies for those of you who didn't get an intro from me at the beginning. Usual shenanigans with trying to deal with Microsoft and Apple because I've got a Mac. Very, very briefly, 20 odd years in digital, started at a small company called AOL, was working through Yahoo before I joined a UK startup, Last FM, in the music space, ending up at Shazam for a number of years before exit to Apple. I spent the last few years working in VR with Melody VR, music delivery, AI, and product placement with Myriad, and then latterly as a consultant for a number of companies. The most interesting is in agri-tech. I'm working for a weeding company that is trying to rid the planet of glyphosate, which has been linked to cancer and now Parkinson's. It's a great chemical. Anyway, so that's a very, very brief history of where I've been. I think having read the question here, I take the first few lines as the most critical. So if you're having and seeing an initial drop-off amongst patients, have you asked those patients who've dropped off, have you taken a selection of however many, and ask them why. I think some of the data points here you will be able to very, very quickly understand, because further into the question here, it's creating step-by-step videos, absolutely, interactive Q&A, absolutely. But until you know the reason why they are dropping off, it's very difficult to give you any advice that you've already put into the question, because these are all good ideas. But if the fundamentals are lacking, then whatever you do is going to be a challenge. So my recommendation here would be to take a selection of those who drop off, ask them if they're happy to help on the basis of having an access for a set amount of time for free, as for their time, and take it from there. But at that stage, you'll be able to get some serious data points from those very people who are dropping off, which you don't want to drop off. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much for that, Ian. I'm sorry Ian, Miles. Sorry you're having those issues with connection, but now you're here, so
it's not your fault. It's just usual shenanigans, isn't
it? Modern technology.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. We now have 38 minutes to go, which means we're only probably good, I don't know, 3 questions, another 3 questions maybe max. So if you do want to ask us anything, those of you that are on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember, unfortunately, we are unable to monitor your questions live. So if you do want to ask our amazing panelists anything, you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that, it's via our site, startup2scaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Growth Q&A 150. Click join. Quick registration gets you a link to your email, and through that link, you can then join us here. When you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, and you can ask the panel. We're taking questions on anything to do with your business growth and growing your startup basically to the next stage. They can be on anything from user, vendor, partner, clients, acquisition, growth hacks, partnerships, go-to-market, sales, marketing, advertising, branding, and anything within that sphere, really. If, however, your questions are not on growth, please save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup2scaleup.club. Actually, when you're there, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators. There's actually a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our site. All you have to do is just click on that and then pick the group that interests you more. Now, we'll go on to another question. And since you said you're now dealing with agritech, I think this was from a university, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll read out the question. It's in the chat in case the panelists want to read it. But I'll read it out loud for everyone. Where is it? Okay. Agritech for precision farming, location Nottingham. I don't know why, but from the email, I hope I'm remembering it correctly, but from the email, I think they were either at a university or a university spin, something like that. Situation: farmers hesitate to adopt due to perceived complexity. Our precision farming platform appeals to farmers but lacks urgency for adoption due to perceived complexity. How can we create FOMO by offering subsidies or grants for early adopters, highlighting regional success stories from beta users and providing exclusive insights like localized weather or yield prediction data for first clients? What role could collaborative field days showcasing competitive advantages for users play in driving adoption? I'm finding this quite strange, because you want to offer them grants. Where on earth does the startup get money for these grants? Anyway, let's start with Miles, then we'll go on to Ian, and then Matt, please.
Yes, this is really interesting. It's right in my wheelhouse right now. I mean, I have the same question. The scenario here is subsidies or grants. Yeah, how and why? Is this backing into any government grants and subsidies that exist? Because I do know there's a very complex field of subsidies for farms, especially when it comes to looking after the land and gaining more yield from the land. I think every farmer at the moment is stretched. We have 3 meetings coming up for our products that have now moved about 7 billion times. You know, it's a really hard time in especially here in the UK because of the weather. So maybe the complexity is a flag only on the basis that they're so busy, and maybe this isn't the right time to be spending trying to get hold of farmers because they're out until 10 o'clock at night harvesting. On the basis that that the question is really critical, then I think you're right. If it's looking at subsidies or grants based on government, then you have a fantastic backbone that you can use. We use DEFRA for ours. It's not a grant, but it's a certificate we have, and that really helps. If it's your own, then there's a way here of making it out that you're a founding partner. The data we gathered, we want to help the whole an entire farming community, and at your farm, your data will be providing this. So I think again, you've got it all here. It's very much a case of working out number one, how are you attacking the farms? You know, are you writing to them? Are you just turning up on the doorstep? You know, what is your strategy there? And I think the most important part again is there's some information here that's not here. You know, what's the size of the farms you're approaching? If it's a case of you have a community here of maybe 12 mega farms, just turn up and you know, then do your pitch. If it's a community of or a whole act of maybe 5,000 farms, then you know, clearly that's going to be a mail shot that's using a CRM to get out. But the problem with farms is that most farmers aren't on a CRM. So you're going back to very, very traditional mail. And although I have to say, last time I spoke with Anton was a few weeks back, direct mail is on the way back up again. We all get 7 billion emails a day. It's too many. So I think it's taking a step. Who is your audience? Who do you want to target? And you know, there is a situation here where you just simply turn up and demonstrate your ability to look at what you're going to achieve, what you want to achieve, and take it from there. But again, I don't know who the actual core audience is here, size of farms, how many, because that'll really help you understand the focus of how you want to achieve this.
Absolutely. You know, I get it. You may not want to put your head sort of above water for people, because you may think, you know, what are people going to think if I'm asking such questions in an open forum? But guess what? If nothing else, at least it's free publicity onto the people that tune in, because you never know whether they may be a potential client or an investor or whoever it is. But the bottom line is, if you're not here, we're not going to be able to give you our best answers. Ian, what would you do to create FOMO here?
So it's, yeah, opposite to Miles, very much not in my wheelhouse, this one, but what springs to mind on the sort of more traditional side, if you're trying to break down like a perceived complexity, is being able to demonstrate this in some way. And I was thinking of things like county showgrounds around England that you could have space at, where you could talk to farmers and show them the technology and see if you can generate interest that way. And the other one that popped into my mind, but I don't know if he's actually much liked by the farming community, is Jeremy Clarkson, and get him on board to help promote it.
Good idea.
That's a good start. Yes, Matt.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking on the same. A question from an agri-tech business came up in a previous call, and someone suggested Caleb because he's sort of, you know, young and got the ear of the public, and I think, you know, it might sound like a bit of a, you know, not, well, that's not so serious, but I think there is a bit of a public wave of interest in farming, and particularly with like what, you know, the government have done recently. And so I think there's probably an opportunity there to capitalize on that increased public interest. It's not a sector that I'm especially familiar with, so I can't say for sure, but I'd definitely be interested in looking at that as a tactic. And then in terms of the FOMO, I don't know anything about the grants aspect for this, but I would say in terms of driving the FOMO, yeah, I would say get your early adopters, get your beta users, and incentivize them however you can to be part of your marketing. Their stories and they are the social proof that I think can help you tackle the complexity issue. And I don't know how complex. I mean, I'm sure it's very complex. Some of the how you integrate with different farms in different areas and different, you know, crops and whatnot. So I'm sure there is a lot of complexity to deal with. But I mean, when we think about this from a software perspective, it's all about the integrations and making them as simple and quick and painless as possible, right? One-click integrations, no code integrations. So I would just focus on that in the messaging. How can you sort of allow farmers to you know, to use their existing setup with minimal hassle, and try and build that into the stories that you can create from those early adopters, to show that, you know, it's not as complex as it seems. So yeah, that's where I'd go.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, 28 minutes ago. I think we should go on to the next question. Just a reminder, if you're on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams if you do want to ask our panelists anything. Quickest way to, well, actually, most of those live streams should have a direct link that you can simply click and then register to join us. If not, simply go to our site, startuptoscaleup.club, find today's session, which is Startup Growth Q&A 150. Click join. A quick registration gets you a link to your email, and through that link you can then join us here. It's audio only, which means you can join from anywhere via any device or platform. Now, in terms of questions, we're helping founders today to grow your business. So those can be anything to do with growth, whether it's user, vendor, partner, client acquisition, some growth hacks, sales, marketing, advertising, branding, maybe go-to-market, and anything within that sphere. But if your questions are not on growth today, save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month it's UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can register to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And while you're there, why not also join our WhatsApp community? We've got some nice groups of founders, investors, and operators that you can join. Let's go on to our next question. We're based in Cambridge, going for Series A medtech startup, developing AI-powered diagnostic tools for small private clinics. We've seen steady adoption in London clinics, but expanding to clinics in smaller UK cities has been slow due to concerns of a cost and trust in the technology. What targeted market penetration approach, including educational workshops, partnerships with regional health networks, and subsidized pilot programs could help us address these barriers and scale nationally? I don't know what stage you're at, but sometimes you simply cannot dominate the entire market. And if you say that you're doing well in some smaller London, sorry, you said we've seen steady adoption in London clinics. That should be quite a good start. Anyway, let's hear what the panelists got to say on this. I think with this we can start maybe with Matt, then Miles, and then Ian, please.
Sure. I guess I'd want to dig into that a little bit more and understand, is there some kind of difference between the clinics that you've seen are willing and able to adopt the technology in London versus those in other cities? And, you know, is that sort of simply down to, you know, revenue? It's a cost issue, in which case, you know, that might be an easy one to overcome. But then trusting the technology feels like they, you know, why would clinics in London trust the technology, but those outside of London perhaps not trust it? Especially if those, you know, initial clinics can be the proof that it works, and you can sort of build on what they've achieved with your technology. So I'd want to dig into those objections and actually, you know, get to the bottom of them, speak to as many of them as possible, and see if there's something else underneath the surface there that's perhaps in the way. I think the targeted, you know, the tool, the ideas that you've got there in terms of workshops, partnerships with the regional health networks. I don't know whether you can go to the sort of the care boards of each of the individual areas and maybe sort of do that sort of one by one, and maybe align those into sort of a priority order based on sort of similarity to the clinics that you've seen success with already. Maybe that's a specific area of health that they focus on that it might work better for. I would maybe start with that, and then test your assumptions that you're making while you're doing that. You know, see if that bears fruit. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Thank you very much for that, Miles.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mirror a lot of that actually, because for me, again, slightly missing some of the information here that would make it easy to give some hard advice. Is there any support from the NHS, for example? I know the NHS are really looking to a lot of independent companies to help shift the backlog to a lot of the waiting lists. So is there a way in through the NHS? Don't know. I think from a point of view of where you can address this, obviously a lot of regional clinics will compete with each other. So this is a case of the FOMO scenario. So if you're dealing with the South Coast, you know, are you going to or can you run a scenario with one in Eastbourne versus one in Hastings, for example, and say only one of you is going to get hold of this for the first 12 months to give them a USP? So again, it comes down to, is there a link to the NHS that could help you? If not, then it's very much a case of mapping the audience, i.e. of these clinics, how many are you trying to attract? Where do they sit? And then taking a sales approach that is very much a case of the FOMO scenario, and being the first to adopt your diagnostic tool, because it will give you the opportunity to have a USP if it's private. Because if it's private, people have money and people will pay for better diagnostics. Again, so there's a bit of information in there that's needed in order to take it to that next step.
Absolutely. And just putting two and two together, sorry, and just before we come to you, but my feeling here, because of the way they've ordered the question, I don't think they can get into the NHS, which is why they must have gone to private clinics, and they want to carry on with that. Because, and I know this from experience with other things I've been involved with in the past, other startups that I've helped, getting into the NHS, it's, I'm not saying impossible, but it's extremely close to that. And, you know, understandably, to a certain extent, they're extremely slow, especially when it comes to adopting, you know, AI and all this kind of stuff. But I think, what's his name? The health secretary, Wes Streeton, isn't it? He had published something about helping the NHS, so they're kind of working on that. So definitely a good call, Miles, to look into it. Ian, what would you do here?
I think the only other thing I would add from what the rest of you guys have been saying is, if you've got that steady adoption already in London clinics, leverage those customers and build testimonials or some case studies for your tech from them, and add that to the collateral that you're able to use in sales and targeting and in the other smaller UK cities, because that is often the most powerful way to break down barriers in trust over technology. Like myself, I've worked for a good few years in the world of open banking and open finance, which is, that's fantastic technology to really let people own their data and their financial data. But there is a big trust problem with that as well, where people are very unsure about making these connections and using other products to store that data. But being able to leverage customers that are using that and using that successfully and improving their financial decision making, and in this case improving the diagnostics and speed, I imagine as well, at getting results through in clinics. I think that's going to be the most powerful way to break down that trust concern.
Indeed, thank you very much for that. Now, depending on what your costs are in terms of how much you can profit from this tool, what I would do is I would invite your current clients in London for a coffee, not all at once maybe, but one at a time, or maybe literally just go to their offices and offer to help with whatever system they have, and just say, who else do you know outside London that could make use of this, and find a way to incentivize them to, one, tell you, but perhaps even more importantly, recommend you to these people. Obviously, they're not going to recommend you to their competitors, but if it's somebody, I don't know, in Cheshire, I don't think there'll be much stuff for them to worry about there. So find a way to get these ones that you already have to actually recommend you somebody out there. That's something worth looking into. Rightio, we've got 17 minutes to go. Okay, this is an interesting one. We're a pre-seed SaaS startup in Brighton offering a subscription-based bookkeeping tool for small creative businesses. Whilst we know our largest competitors focus on generalized solutions, it's been difficult to determine where we can differentiate effectively. How can we develop a competitive analysis framework that identifies specific gaps in user experience, such as underserved niche features or pricing flexibility, whilst leveraging customer interviews and competitor product breakdowns to refine our unique selling proposition? I have to say, in the last few weeks, most of the questions I've received have been, when it comes to growth, have been on the comp analysis and pricing. I don't know what is going on out there, but a ton of questions. So with this, let's start perhaps with Ian, then Matt, and then Miles, please.
Thanks, Anton. Yeah, so my first thoughts as I was reading this question, and it was kind of almost self-addressed, is definitely leveraging customer interviews to understand some of those pain points and these niche areas that might be underserved, as well as looking, for the competitors are doing and how they break things down, and having a sort of a competitive framework that then sort of is able to identify that for you. It really feels like where we are with the state of sort of technology and AI at the moment is that there would be something out there that could speed this up for you in terms of developing that framework by utilizing the power of an AI tool that can do that and can take in the information that you've already collated, interviews that you've run, other comparisons that are already out there, like on the open web, analyzing competitor activity. And I feel that could give you an upper hand on sort of finding the differentiation points that you can then target. I think more generally, I think the other advantage of being a startup at this stage we're at now is that you can often use these tools and accelerate quite quickly, something that I'm sort of doing myself, where I am at the moment, without potentially getting bogged down in like sign-offs and acceptances, when you're part of a much bigger organization where it's a lot harder to get these tools into your processes. I think there really is an advantage here. So that's where I feel I would approach this particular problem.
Thank you. Yes, Matt.
Yeah, I'd say that it absolutely right to kind of identify the user research, customer interview aspects is going to be the source of the what you need is going to be the source of the value. So I would be spending a lot of time on that, and AI is a great tool for that. You can obviously customize and feed ChatGPT so much information and use it to kind of help you get through that kind of qualitative analysis that can take so much time. Especially helpful if you're sort of resource light at the early stage. I mean, my hypothesis would be going into a competitive space with big competitors and general tools, as you've said, is going to be, small creative businesses are under so much cost pressure. It's going to be about like almost, could it be like what's the light touch bookkeeping tool that doesn't have all the fluff but keeps the cost sort of minimal for them? And trying to test that hypothesis. And once you've gone through that user experience, user research process, redevelop your value proposition, and then go and test that with customers again and say, okay, what does this look like? Does this work for you? How do you adapt this into your kind of dream product in this scenario? Test the price point with them as well, and have them almost, build your roadmap for you and prioritize it for you. So yeah, that's what I would go with, I think, in this instance.
Thanks for that. Miles?
Yeah, I back up both Ian and Matt. I think ultimately as well, what we're not saying here is how many clients that potentially you already have, or don't you? Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, you have a couple of clients who are using the platform. Have you questioned them extensively? And again, this is about the time cost relationship. It's, would you sit down with us and, Anton, you mentioned it, have a coffee with these people? There's a different question, obviously, but very similar scenario. Would you be prepared to give me, half an hour of your time, and we'll give you an extra month for free, or whatever it may be? There's always an offset here. But if you've got a number of clients and you've got them in certain buckets, you've got your best clients who've been with you for maybe 6 months. You've got those clients who have just joined you. Maybe you've got clients that have tried your month trial and then just dropped away. That for me is the critical bucket. Those people who have come in and said, "Oh, I'll give this a try," and then say, "No, I'm not going to continue," because that can give you the most insight. But again, I don't know how many you have. I don't know whether you've actually launched. But it's very, very critical. Small creative businesses, as it's been said already, are under huge pressure, and they're under pressure fundamentally from AI, because an awful lot of businesses who are SMEs, especially who are likely to use small creative businesses, will just turn to any of the AI platforms to generate flyers, to generate their logos, generate all of their marketing stuff that's needed, which is putting them under even more pressure. So definitely price pressure here, but again, I don't know if it's launched, if it's pre-seed. I don't know if it's launched and how many companies are already on the platform. That becomes the utter focus for moving to the next step.
Thank you very much, Miles. Talking of pressure, before we go on to the next question, I was at an event yesterday in the City of London. The mayor had this thing called Growth Unleashed. And watching some of the pictures there, it just dawned on me that the two of what used to be known as some of the most important engines and machinery of commerce, well, not commerce, of the markets in the UK. They were the independent brokers and insurance and mortgage. Now, once a lot of the larger providers brought it all in house and stuff, that is still a huge piece out there. But guess what? I just saw yesterday people building AI agents, and I give it a couple of years when there'll hardly be any of these brokers out there. So that's how much pressure and disruption we're going to see. But hey, let's see what happens. Okay, I think we've got 9 minutes to go, so probably time for one last question. This has been quite an interesting startup growth Q&A. So a few shy people out there, maybe next time, if you want a decent answer, you might be bothered to join us live. So let's go with our last question. As a clean tech startup in Sheffield, we're offering a solar-powered charging station for rural UK villages lacking reliable grid access. Despite high interest in renewable energy, local councils and community organisations are slow to commit due to budget limitations and lack of a clear ROI. What innovative acquisition methods, such as co-funding models or strategic collaborations with environmental charities, could we use to secure our first 5 major clients and prove the concept? That's quite interesting. Looking at them on LinkedIn, because this came via LinkedIn, I can only see 4 people in that company. Again, a bit similar to the, I think we had one maybe towards the beginning. Was it the agri-tech company you mentioned about funding?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this person means funding so that they can find the funding, or if they've got ways and means to get grants out there. That's a different story. But it's quite an interesting concept. Let's start with Miles, and then Matt, and last but not least, Ian, please. What would you do here?
I mean, I love this idea. I mean, I think for me, again, just to be focused here, is it solar powered car charging or charging full stop? So I'm not 100% sure. I would need to understand.
I think this is charging full stop in what I can see, but
yeah.
There isn't much on their on their LinkedIn either. So I'm assuming this is charging in general, and now they're looking at all sorts. Probably they see this as a good way to enter the market to start with cars. But again, I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. So the addressable market for unreliable grid access, I would love to know. I mean, what is the addressable market for it? I think working with councils is an utter nightmare. They and especially when it comes to looking at new solutions and new tech, but actually it's not as challenging as you think it might be when you're looking and debating capex and opex. So in terms of the statement here, as co-funding models under acquisition, I would absolutely offer first 5 councils or clients to install this for free, and then claw back potentially the costs from the next, I don't know, 12, 24 months, because then it becomes a no cost option for anybody. And for that very scenario, if you're looking for these 5, which I think is a great idea, they become your fundamentally the story, the narrative around your business, in order to then take it to the next stage and the next 5, the next 10 clients who you will charge for. So it's very important to have that story, that narrative at the beginning. And although it will be hard, fundamentally you can claw back, because if you're generating power, obviously you can take some of the charge back. There's a great position to be in. councils are hard, but again, it's finding that right person. It's persistence. I'm afraid this is very much a case of 25 calls a day and do not give up. This is 25 emails a day and do not give up. That they will love this, but again, it's the absolute, the captive audience. So where is the grid lacking? And I just don't know that answer. And that's what I would do. I'd certainly go and get it installed and get your case studies.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Matt.
Yeah, I think Miles is spot on there. It's about just a relentless pursuit of those individuals that have the influence and just really advocate for what you're doing and are willing to kind of help you go the distance. And there isn't a shortcut for that, I don't think. I mean, you can obviously search for where the grants are available, and hope that it kind of marries up, that you can find the right people. But I think it is just a case of you've got to kiss a lot of frogs with this one to solve the problem. So yeah, I would say that's Miles has got it spot on there. Nothing I would really add to that.
Thank you very much, Ian.
The only thing that popped into my mind that I think I could add, but it's obviously it is dependent on resources. You were saying the size of the company, Anton, but I was thinking of this idea of having like a mobile unit, almost like a roadshow unit that you could take round to UK villages to demonstrate it and sort of gather demand, get people to sort of sign up their interest, which could then be used as an extra bit of collateral when you're approaching the councils, to show that you've actually had some research here and there's genuine demand in certain villages for your technology.
Just got to.
Absolutely. Here's what I would do. I would look, if it is the car charging parts rather than other types of I don't know, like solar panels and stuff, but if it's the car charging part, I would try and identify 3 types of potential collab. Number 1, pubs. Number 2, and this is going to sound a bit controversial, churches. They're kind of empty, but almost every UK village has a church. And number 3, either a train station and or a local supermarket. Literally, again, this isn't easy. You need to do a lot of work. You need to cover a lot of phone calls and emails and what have you. But I would literally just start one by one. Maybe a good idea to start with villages that have kind of the highest population, so that at least if you get something out of it, you've started with the ones that have some people rather than just 4 people living in a village. That's what I would do. And eventually, all it takes is, you start kind of speaking to a few, and eventually they start hearing about it. I think it was Miles that mentioned the, or was it? I can't remember. The sort of almost create a FOMO part in terms of saying we're going to pick 1 or 2 to do that. Or maybe it was the previous question, but maybe you could do this and say, look, we're going to install it. We're going to install it for free. Obviously, we can't do this in every village in the UK, but we're going to pick XYZ amount depending on how much foot traffic they think they're going to get. And we're going to install this for free. And you start doing that and get everyone to apply, and then see where that takes you. Right, we are now 1 minute away from closing shop, so perhaps some quick parting words from our panelists. Maybe, I think it was Matt that joined first, then Ian, and then Miles. So maybe we can take it in that order. If you've got any parting words for us today, gentlemen.
I've got a great bunch of questions, and I hope it was useful. Obviously, if there's anything you want to follow up with, any specific questions about anything I've said, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to pick up the baton there and go a bit deeper on any of it. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for that, Ian.
Yeah, thanks for having me too. I think it was a good batch of questions, different areas. It's always interesting, and sort of enjoyed definitely thinking on a different strand that I'm used to. But no, just happy to be there, and hope things were useful.
Ian, just before we go to Miles, here's something that will definitely single me out there. I think we showcased and featured your records in almost 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Did you see any change in traffic or not really?
Do you know what? In all honesty, it's hard to say because it is quite low at the moment in terms of our kind of organic presence. We're in the kind of single digits of daily app downloads, which is still great. Better than zero, of course. But hard. I'm sure it did help, but it's hard to say exactly where, because everything, as everyone would know, working in this space, you are trying to grow that brand awareness and get that voice out and just the knowledge that you exist. So no, I did appreciate it.
No, to be honest with you, I didn't expect that it may increase, although that would have been nice. Downloads, I was hoping at least it would increase people kind of checking the site out or following the LinkedIn page or something like that. That was my hope at least. But I hear you. Thank you very much for that. Last but not least, Miles, any parting words for us?
Yeah, I'm loving the fact that there's so many startups looking actually at the physical world. This has been really gratifying. But my parting comments, as I am working for an agri-tech business as well, is persistence. I've mentioned it before. It's not easy, and it takes time and persistence. And whatever method you use, we've actually turned up at venues without an invite. We send out emails, we send out snail mail, we make phone calls, and I've actually got hold of someone last week who he admitted that he answered the phone by mistake because he doesn't normally answer his phone. So it is persistence. It takes time, but I love the fact that there's so many people thinking about the real world, because that's where there's so much we have to do in the world to sort our man-made mess out. I'm only learning about this in the last few months, what an utter mess it is. So no, it's been some of the obviously some of the startups are still very much digital, but I love the fact that some of the questions coming through are from the physical.
Indeed, thank you very much for that. Well, huge thanks for your help today, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Just a couple of things before my parting words. Number one, there is a link to our WhatsApp community here. I've just posted that here in the chat. Also, for those of you that want to register to future sessions as well as join our WhatsApp community, simply go to startuptoscaleup.club. You'll see that there we run 6 regular events. That's about 16 to 19, depending on the month, events per month, helping or trying to help founders go from startup to scale up, really. And in a way, we're trying to simulate a on-demand tailored advice that works sort of scenario here. With people who've been there and done it. Those events are Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's startup legal, and third Friday of each month it's startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. You can RSVP to any of them on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. And we're in July, as you can tell. We will then be taking some time off during August and then come back in September, hopefully with some nice surprises too. But There's still time if you would like to apply to become our Startup of the Month during July, or for the remainder of this month, really. So please feel free to go to our site, startup2scaleup.club. On the menu, there's a link that says Startup of the Month, and just follow the details there. As far as my parting words, just remember, the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime, and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. And if you do want help from us, rather than join on the live streams, which is at the moment LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please try to join us live here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you don't need to spend an hour in front of the mirror doing your hair. Otherwise, hopefully, we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Fundraising Q&A. We've got some amazing investors and fundraising experts, and would love to see what we can do to help you. Thank you, and God bless you all. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks, Anton. Bye.
Ta-ra.